The prophetic meaning of the equinox as a sign before the rapture carries with it a weight of mystery and divine revelation that has been whispered about for generations. The equinox itself is not simply a moment when day and night share equal time. It is a cosmic reminder that light and darkness are in constant balance. And throughout history, this balance has always pointed to greater spiritual truths. Many prophetic voices have spoken of the equinox as a time when spiritual veils are thinner, when the heavens align in a way that releases signs for those who are chosen to recognize them. In biblical context, the sun, moon, and stars have always been given as signs for appointed times, and the equinox marks such a moment. It becomes a divine calendar marker that often correlates with significant spiritual shifts. When people ignore the deeper meaning of such times, they miss the hidden warnings that God sets in the fabric of creation. The prophets of old understood that creation itself speaks a language, and the equinox is one of those appointed days when the message becomes clear for those ready to listen. The rapture, a promise written in Scripture, is tied to the unfolding of prophetic seasons. The equinox symbolizes a transition, not only in nature but in the spiritual realm. Just as the physical world moves from one season to another, so too does the spiritual reality of humanity move toward its appointed destiny. The equinox becomes a foreshadowing of the sudden shift that will one day happen when the rapture takes place. Day will turn to night. Ordinary life will turn into extraordinary revelation, and the line between the seen and unseen will blur. This is why prophetic watchers always pay attention to times like the equinox. They recognize that God speaks through patterns, and those patterns often intensify around significant celestial events. The balance of light and darkness at the equinox symbolizes the final battle between good and evil, and the victory of light that is about to manifest for the chosen ones. The equinox serves as a warning and a preparation call. It is not just about marking a date on the calendar, but about tuning into the spiritual frequency of heaven. The days surrounding the equinox often carry heightened awareness, where signs in the sky, unusual events in nature, and shifts in the spiritual atmosphere take place. These moments are not coincidental. They are divine signals. Many believers have felt an inner stirring, a sense that something beyond the ordinary is unfolding. This is the Spirit awakening them to recognize the time and season they are in. Scripture tells us to watch and be alert, because the return of Christ will come like a thief in the night. And the equinox reminds us of that sudden transition from one state of being to another throughout history. Ancient civilizations also recognize the importance of the equinox. From the alignment of pyramids to the construction of temples, many cultures built their sacred structures in line with the movements of the sun during these times. This was not random human curiosity. It was an acknowledgement that something greater was taking place in the heavens. For those who follow biblical prophecy, this understanding deepens the conviction that God has always used the heavens to declare his timing. The equinox acts as a prophetic clock, reminding the faithful that the seasons of man are aligning with the seasons of heaven. When heaven and earth echo the same message, it is a sign that something of great significance is at hand. When we look at the equinox in the context of end-time prophecy, it becomes clear that it points to both a warning and a promise. The warning is that darkness is rising, that spiritual deception is increasing, and that many will be caught unprepared when sudden change arrives. The promise, however, is that light will prevail, that God has appointed a time for the gathering of his chosen, and that his signals will not go unnoticed by those who remain vigilant. The equinox stands as a marker that reminds us of the urgency to remain awake, to read the signs of the times, and to align ourselves with the divine calendar written in the stars and seasons. 8 powerful signs that will manifest after September 24 are not random occurrences or coincidences, but align with the divine blueprint that has been unfolding since the beginning of creation. The equinox sets the stage for these signs to reveal themselves, and each one serves as a prophetic marker pointing toward the soon return of Christ. These signs are not hidden from those who are spiritually awake. They are placed in plain sight, yet only the chosen and the watchful will truly understand their meaning. The first sign is the shaking of the heavens, where celestial patterns and unusual alignments begin to stir people's attention. Solar and lunar activity has always been tied to prophecy, and after September 24, many will notice unusual occurrences in the skies. These are not accidents, but divine signals placed to remind humanity that time is short and the days are numbered. The second sign is the unrest of nations, where conflicts, divisions, and turmoil rise to levels that can no longer be ignored. Scripture foretold that nations would rise against nations and kingdoms against kingdoms, and this becomes clearer as these days unfold. Wars, rumors of wars, and political instability are all indicators that prophecy is moving closer to fulfillment. The third sign is the intensification of natural disasters. Earthquakes, floods, storms, and fires have always existed, but after significant prophetic markers like the equinox, they increase in both frequency and magnitude. The earth itself groans under the weight of sin, and its cries manifest through these disasters. Each event becomes a trumpet sound, warning those who are paying attention. The fourth sign is the acceleration of technological control in global systems. Prophecy points toward a time when no one will be able to buy or sell without certain marks or systems of identification. As technology rapidly advances and global control becomes tighter, it is another sign that the time is near. The equinox acts like a spiritual trigger, pushing these systems into more visible stages that prepare the world for what Scripture has already foretold. The fifth sign is the rise of false prophets and deceptive voices that claim to bring truth, but lead many astray. After September 24th, these voices become louder and more convincing, spreading confusion and drawing people away from the true word. This deception is dangerous because it presents itself as light, yet its foundation is rooted in darkness. The sixth sign is the spiritual awakening among the chosen ones. While deception spreads, so does the hunger for truth. The Spirit of God begins stirring hearts in ways that cannot be ignored, and the chosen begin to see with greater clarity. They recognize the signs, feel the urgency, and step into their divine assignments with boldness. This awakening is proof that God never leaves his people without guidance in critical times. The seventh sign is the exposure of hidden darkness. Secrets long concealed begin to surface, revealing corruption, evil practices, and hidden agendas across nations and institutions. This exposure is not accidental. It is God's way of uncovering what has been hidden in order to prepare the world for judgment and redemption. The eighth sign is the increase of supernatural manifestations. Dreams, visions, prophetic revelations, and unexplainable encounters rise among those who are spiritually aligned. The veil between heaven and earth becomes thinner, and God begins to communicate with his people in extraordinary ways. These manifestations are confirmations of what Scripture has already promised, that in the last days, sons and daughters will prophesy, old men will dream dreams, and young men will see visions. All 8 signs together paint a picture of urgency, a reminder that we are not just moving through ordinary times, but through prophetic moments that align with the end-time calendar. Each sign builds upon the other, creating a clear and undeniable message for those willing to see beyond the surface of events happening in the world around them. Why? The chosen must stay spiritually alert and prepared for the coming shift, is one of the most critical truths for this generation. The world is moving at a pace that blinds many to the deeper realities unfolding behind the scenes. Distractions, temptations, and constant noise drown out the warnings, and yet those who are chosen cannot afford to sleep through this prophetic hour. To be spiritually alert means more than simply knowing about prophecy or recognizing the signs. It means living with an awareness that every choice, every thought, and every action carries eternal weight. Preparation for the coming shift begins within the heart, where faith is anchored, and where the Spirit speaks clearly to those who are willing to listen. Those who are spiritually asleep will miss the divine cues that God is releasing, but those who are awake will sense the urgency and respond with obedience. Staying spiritually alert also requires discernment. The days ahead will be filled with deception, voices that sound convincing but are rooted in lies. Without discernment, even the elect could be led astray. The chosen must test every spirit, weigh every teaching against Scripture, and guard their minds from the flood of confusion that will rise after this equinox. Preparation is not about storing physical resources alone, though wisdom may call for that. It is about strengthening the soul, building unshakable faith, and refusing to compromise with the rising tide of darkness. Spiritual alertness also means prayer without ceasing, because prayer is the lifeline that keeps the chosen aligned with heaven. It is in prayer that clarity comes, strength is renewed, and direction is given.